With the Brooklyn Nets getting their largest win in franchise history last night, the question now becomes what does the future look like? And with the NBA trade window opening today, there is certainly still a lot left to be desired as a Nets fan. Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the Brooklyn Boys Show. As always, I am your host, Josh Wolliver. Monday, December 15th is our date. Make sure on your way into the building you smash the like button and hit subscribe. Continue to help the growth and support of this channel. Simple, free, easy, helps us continue to grow the community. 2 taps, like, subscribe, and then get into the questions into the comment section. Questions, thoughts, reactions, throw those all in there. We will get to those in just a couple of minutes. Already seeing those start to flow in. How's it going, BC? How's it going, Jonathan? You guys are the best as always. So we'll get there in just a couple of minutes. Throw in any questions you have about the Nets with the trade window opening today. Cam Thomas highlights those that the Monday, December 15th deadline window opens up. But I think where we have to start is last night and what that means moving forward for this team's draft odds, because I said it on my post game report on Instagram. In a year where the Brooklyn Nets thought that they would not compete, that they would be lucky to win a handful of games. Some people didn't have them winning double-digit games. Some people had this team on pace to be the worst team in league history. But then all of a sudden, you win 3 out of 4 last week. You lose a tough one in Dallas, but you still have to highlight that that was a very close and competitive game down the stretch. The Nets played 3 great quarters, and then Dallas just outmatched them in the final 5 minutes. But you can't ignore the fact that that was a competitive game almost the entire 48 minutes. And so was the Jazz game as well, which is the only one that you lost last week. The Nets were winning that game by 15 points in the first half. Ultimately, they end up losing that game. Lauri Markkanen gets hot. Keontae George gets hot. And Brooklyn just can't figure out how to defend and attack either, for that matter. However, considering the fact that both of those are very, very close games, that you could certainly see a world where the Nets pull out on top of both the Dallas and the Utah games, you're talking about this team being a couple crucial plays away from winning 5 straight games. And when they started 0-7, you would have thought this would never be an issue that's on the table. When you looked at this roster going into the season, you would have never thought that this would be an issue that's on the table. But now I begin to sound the alarms, because it was fine when you were beating teams like Chicago and Charlotte, who you could certainly be better than, and you had a lead on Utah. That was all fine. But when it creeps into the territory of Dallas is where it starts to get scary. And you could even make the argument that without Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Bucks should certainly be able to compete with the Brooklyn Nets. And 45 points is just a ridiculous number for the Nets to win by. The Bucks didn't score in the final 6 minutes of that game. So I think Milwaukee's a mess. They have to figure that out before the end of February, before the trade deadline. They got to find a way to get Giannis out of there. They have an MVP on their roster with top 3 player in the league is where he's at now. And they're just letting it slip away for nothing, because their hopes of a run, there's none. There's none. Let me just say that. Milwaukee's got to figure their stuff out. But Brooklyn, when you beat a team up that bad, I don't care who is on the other side of the floor. You beat them by 45. You beat the Mavericks. You play them down to the last second in Dallas. This team is starting to move from beating up on bad teams, winning those games, into a dangerous category that begins to contend with the tank. It was fine when you were beating the teams that nobody cared about, that the entire league knew also sucked. But when you move from beating those teams into the category of beating the competent teams is where it really starts to get concerning. And I'm not sure going into last night when the Nets were up 20 in the first quarter, I didn't know how to feel because you cannot have this team. You cannot have a positive long term outlook on this team and then also turn around at the same time and say, I do not care about the pick this year. You have to. You have to care about the pick this year. And you have to care about the pick even more so in 2026 because Houston has your first round pick in 2027 and they own the swap rights. So you have 1 year to go get a franchise changing player in this draft. And maybe you bulk up the centers and the forward spots in free agency. The Nets have as much cap room as any team in the league. They can get basically whoever their little heart desires. They get a ton of draft capital if they want to go for a trade. They can take on a big salary. Sean Marks is in a great position when it comes to the offseason. But knowing that you don't have your own 27 pick, this 26 pick better be the pick of a lifetime. And then ideally, you turn it around. You say, I've seen enough good things for this roster from this season. You hope the rookies develop next season. You hope MPJ takes that next step. He's already going to be an all-star this season. If he isn't, I'll protest to the league offices. I will stand outside the NBA league offices and hold a sign and not go until I get kicked out. Because that would be terrible. But MPJ is going to be an all-star this year. If he progresses to his all-NBA, shall I say, ceiling, I'll go there. I'm willing to go there based on what I've saw in this season. If he progresses to that all-NBA level, you get your franchise-altering pick in this draft. I don't really care who it is. Preferably Darren Peterson. AJ DeBansta's been insane recently. Cam Boozer, I think the jury is still out on. We know he's going to be good. How good, jury's still out on. But those are the three to top the draft. And then Nate and Matt, you have a ton of guys right behind them just waiting in the wings. But what you can't do is you can't mess this up. You can't mess your 26 pickup. The only acceptable way to fall out of the top 5 for Brooklyn is if you get screwed over in the lottery. And I hate to say that Nets fans should be content if this team gets screwed over in the lottery because they shouldn't. This system is terrible. I will continue to rant about that and how it continues to need change. Adam Silver, I hope you're listening. I'll continue to talk about that. But I would much rather this team not have a top 5 pick because they get screwed over in the lottery rather than they wanted to win games in December and in November. So the only way that you do not have a top 5 pick in this good of a class is because the league screws you, not because you screwed yourself. So with that being said, the 2026 draft, we know how vital it is. You don't have your 27th pick. Heck, you might want to contend in the East next year. And that only happens if you can find a great player this year. And you obviously see the next steps from the rookies. So you need to see that progression. But more importantly, you need to see this team end up with a top caliber pick. And at least send themselves into draft lottery night in the best position possible. And I'm going to be honest here. I am not going to sit down and root for my team to lose. If the Nets put out a starting 5 of Tyson Etienne, Tyrese Martin, Terrence Mann. Who else? Who else? Timothy Luwawu Cabarrot. I mean, I could keep going. If they put out the worst 5 imaginable, I will be rooting for this team. However, you need to put yourself in a position where it does not matter who's on the court. This team should not be winning games. There is currently 6 untouchables on this roster. Anybody else is free to leave. I don't care what you say. Keep the rookies and keep Michael Porter Jr. Everybody else you should be picking up phone calls for. Starting today. Pick up phone calls for Nick Claxton. He's been great. Pick up phone calls for him. You need to match the salary, but I am sure there will be suitors looking for a starting caliber center heading into the playoffs. Pick up phone calls for Zaire Williams. He's great. He is a true team player. I love Zaire. Please. But Sean Marks, do not hold back. I don't care. I really don't. You just extended the guy. Perfect. He'll go play that extension for another team. For a Timberwolves team that really needs a role player to elevate what they do in the West. Bye. Hear phone calls for Zaire Williams. Bye. Hear phone calls for Day'Ron Sharpe. You wanted him here. You initiated the move to extend him in the offseason to that 2-year extension. I don't care. You will be hearing phone calls for Day'Ron Sharpe. Because this team needs to get exponentially worse by the time trade deadline season is over. You cannot afford to keep winning games because, again, as I've said, you have leveled up from beating up on bad teams, swooping right in to that middle tier. And I'll tell you what, the concern grows if they beat Miami on Thursday night, which I will be there for. So I am extremely excited to get to watch the rookies. Yegor Joman, bring it on, man. At Barclays. But that is a 14-11 team on the other side of that ball. You cannot afford to win games like that. And if you continue to win today, that just means you got to get significantly worse when it comes to the deadline. So I don't know how Sean Marks and his guys approach it, whether they're looking for a salary dump who finishes out the season in Brooklyn who hasn't worked out somewhere else, whether you're looking for more picks. I don't care, but get the guys off this team that make them win. MPJ's great. Yegor's great. Drake is great. You got to make this team worse. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. You're listening to the Brooklyn Boys Show live. Want to break down a couple things I saw from yesterday's game. Then we'll get into questions, comments, thoughts. Continue to roll with you guys over there in the comment section. Already see you guys getting your stuff loaded up. Ryan's in the house. Ryan, how we doing? Good to see you here. As always, I want to break a couple things down, a couple notes from yesterday's game. Then we'll get in what you guys have to say. But this is via ESPN. And the first thing I saw is you have 9 nets in double figures. Danny Wolf played 24 minutes and scored 8 points. Other than that, you're talking about the only 2 players not over 10 points are Traore and Jalen Wilson, who played 7 and 9 minutes respectively, and who genuinely cannot score. Every single scorer on this team went off yesterday. How about Drake Powell, man? He continues to shine. 13 points is not the flashiest, but you will certainly take 4 of 7 from the field. 4 rebounds, a plus 31. You want to talk about a positive impact? A plus 31, plus minus. That kid can play. Give Drake Powell big time minutes, Jordy Fernandez. And I know it wasn't Jordy Fernandez yesterday. It was Steve Hetzel filling in for him because he was sick. Give Drake Powell big time minutes. He has earned it. And I really don't care if there are rookie mistakes that come along with it. I don't care if his shooting isn't there to be at a respectable NBA level yet. I don't care. Give the man the minutes he's deserved. If you want to threaten to take away Yegor's minutes, you better threaten to increase Drake Powell's minutes. And that is for certain. And Danny Wolf didn't have a great game yesterday like he has in the past. Michael Porter Jr., not a good game for his standards at all. Effectively got the second half off, though, because of how big of a blowout it was. But you want to know what I did love? Every single person played their role. Day'Ron Sharpe, man. What a game he had. What a game from Day'Ron Sharpe. And Noah Clowney, another big, getting in there. He was in fuego in that third quarter. Hit 4 threes in a row in that third quarter. 16 points before you knew he was checked into the game. He made a statement quick. And you love to see that. But here's what you didn't see. Did you see Nick Claxton trying to handle the ball like a point guard? No. Steve Hetzel knows better than that. Did you see this team turn away from what was working? No. No, you didn't. The three was working. They kept feeding it. But overall, it was the defensive effort that stood out to me the most. Because the Nets played extremely well in transition. Day'Ron Sharpe, 4 steals alone. 14 as a team. But when you play good on the defensive end of the floor, all that can lead to is easy buckets on the other end. And that's what I love the most. Because it really doesn't matter who you put out on the floor. Defense is never optional. And I think the Nets showed a great example of that last night. And they were even playing good defense up by 30 or 40 points in the fourth quarter. Smash the like button, hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Couple notes from last night's game there. Want to continue to get questions, comments, thoughts rolling into the chat. But I also need to bring up this. Courtesy of Tankathon. Just the legends always keeping us informed in the flow of what's happening in terms of draft lottery odds. So Tankathon, check them out as always. Brooklyn has fallen out of the top 5 most likely to get the number 1 pick. Their odds for the top pick are down to 9% if the season ended today. But the most aggravating part, and I guess it's a little bit of karma that the Thunder end up losing in the in-season tournament semis to the San Antonio Spurs, so they're not going to win that. They dropped just their second game of the year. But the fact that the OKC Thunder, a team that has lost 2 games all season, is slotted in to pick ahead of the Nets is just, it is mind-boggling, man. It's insane. So, yeah, they have to figure out a way where the Thunder get stopped. Somebody stop these people. I don't know how we do it, where, when, why, how the heck it happens. But the fact that the Thunder are already slotting in ahead of the Nets is just insane. But it all goes back to being able to work the trades well today, and that sets you up for a better future because you get a worse pick. And then come a year later from now, hopefully we're talking about this Brooklyn Nets team in a very expedited rebuild that I didn't think could be able to happen this quickly. I honestly did not know what this team was going to look like at December of 2026 and whether or not they would go all in to get that pick back from Houston because they really needed another high lottery selection, whether they were just going to accept a year off and, I mean, try and leg out a couple wins because they were going to play it like they did when the Celtics got their first pick because of the Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce deal that has built the Celtics' legacy in Boston today and is the reason they won the championship last year. I didn't know what Brooklyn was going to do, to be honest with you. But I think this team's plan has been revealed through the great play of Michael Porter Jr., through the speedy development of these rookies. We are already visibly seeing Yegor Gioman improve. We are already visibly seeing Drake Powell further along than we would have thought at this point and into his career. There have certainly been some surprises. I mean, Ben Surratt was your opening day starting point guard. See how that worked out. He hasn't gotten meaningful minutes in Brooklyn in a month. Traore has done nothing at the NBA level. But that's fine, man. That is fine. Continue to keep those guys on their own pace, not rushing back. But the one thing is, if you do get these deals done at the deadline, that only opens up more space to give the rookies that need the developing minutes their space to do so on an NBA floor. So that's Traore. That's Saraf. I think I like the spot that Wolf, Powell, and Yegor are at. You want to continue to cement that, continue to make that look better. But overall, a byproduct of the trade just means that you deal those guys at the deadline. You're just looking at more opportunities for them to play and get good minutes in the second half. Smash the like button, hit subscribe if you're tuned in with us live. Get questions, comments, thoughts, all of those in the chat. Cannot wait to react to those with you. Jonathan wins today's early bird worm trophy. Getting in the building first. Jonathan, appreciate you as always. He says the Nets got another quote-unquote morale win against a bad team, but with vets like Mann, Martin, MPJ, and Claxwell, Yegor, and Wolf were good. Nets have sixth odds again. Yeah, that's the devastating one. So a lot of those names you mentioned outside of MPJ will be ready and willing to say sayonara to on the trade block in a couple of months. But Mann, Martin, please get those guys off my roster. I mean, I don't even like to watch them in the first place, let alone have them ruin this team's tank. The trade deadline couldn't start sooner because missing out on A.J. Peterson, Boozer, or Wilson would be an irreversible error by this front office. Some of these vets got to be dealt. And I think that, first of all, you're right. You cannot afford to miss on the big four. I think that is something that Sean Marks, who has already overstayed his welcome as Nets GM. I mean, it's certainly looking a little bit better due to the way that this draft worked out, especially with the early speculation that we had no clue how it was all going to go down. But he has certainly earned himself a little bit of grace with me, with this fan base. He is still very much on the hook, though. And I think if you miss out on one of these four, because especially if it's because you were lackadaisical at the trade deadline, you thought, oh, let's just keep winning games. It'll all work itself out. I mean, we got screwed over in last year's draft. You know, fate would tell us that we're due for a good lottery pick this year. So it's fine. Let's just lay back, see how, the cards get dealt. I mean, if that happens, you will see me pissed off on this show. I will not hold back my feelings if that's how it goes down. You're absolutely right. These vets have to get dealt. Get them off this team. Let's go. Figure out the future outlook and do it now before it's too late. That's what's so frustrating. They could completely miss the window. And I can't trust this front office if we're being honest. Cam looks highly likely to be moved, and two desperate teams for him could be Bucks and Clippers. Excuse me, with Clippers, CP 31 and 2 seconds, with the Bucks, Zaire and CT for Kuzma and a first. I don't necessarily love the Kuzma trade talks. I mean, I understand if you have to take on a guy like that salary, and that's just part of the deal. Go ahead. Zaire's so valuable, though, man. But I think you're right, man. The Bucks and Clippers are two perfect destinations for Thomas Jonathan because the Clippers, they are in desperation mode. They don't have their pick, so it's all or nothing for them this season. And what does Steve Ballmer want more than another score? Probably another ball hog score. And if you're the Bucks, you at least want to somewhat compete. And if you trade Giannis, you have nobody to do that with. So I think those two destinations make a lot of sense. I'm not sure if those exact packages are what I love the most. We'll see offers start to flow in here. We'll hear from insiders right here on this channel about what offers are going to look like. So make sure your subscribe notifications turned on if you haven't done so yet. Still a lot to be desired, though, in terms of the trade offers. BC in the building. How we doing, BC? Ryan comes in. He says maybe Jordy Fernandez needs to stay home more. In all seriousness, hope Coach Jordy is doing well and recovering well. I know my school got beat up with the flu this past week. Thankfully, I don't think I've latched on quite yet, at least. But yes, it is the season of the diseases, so make sure you're staying safe out there. Steve Hetzel sure as hell did a great job, though, in terms of filling in as this team's head coach. Not bad over here. I'm a Knicks fan, but love tuning in to hear you talk Nets and support the show. Love it, Ryan. Absolutely love it. All day, every day, baby. Jonathan comes in, says Steve Hetzel boggled my mind yesterday when he said Claxton Sharp have locked down the 5 and see Wolf as a 4 forward when he's a point center. They can't be a wall for Wolf. I'm not sure. I think they're still testing things out with Wolf in terms of where to permanently slot him in. I don't think they have it fully figured out right now. And if they think they do, I honestly don't think they should. Like, keep getting the guy more reps all around, but he has certainly had a big role in handling the ball for this team when he's been out there on the floor. So don't turn away from that. It's worked so far. And I don't mind this team mixing up the positions like they always have. Couple more here before we wrap on the show. Let's see. With MPJ, the Pistons are a team who can make a good offer for MPJ. Harris is expiring. Ron Holland's a young project, and 2 unprotected firsts would be an enticing offer. I honestly say no to that. I say no to Joe Harris, Ron Holland, and 2 firsts. Like, those Pistons firsts aren't going to be that valuable. You already have more picks than your little heart can desire. I just want to give up a guy that has changed your team so much in the last month plus for that. I need a bigger package than that, or I'm not trading him. Clips or Warriors could also be chances. Yeah, I mean, Clips. Clips need anyone and everyone they can get. Claxton, Celtics, Bucks, Warriors are in trade talks as well with him. That could be interesting. Simons in a first, Vooch in a first, Moody and a first, and Obi and a first for Clax are all offers on the table. There's nothing there that I love necessarily. But I think it is certainly vital that Nick Claxton, you're at least looking to get him out. I know he's basically Sean Marks' little toy pet at this point, but you almost need to figure out a way to get that situation situated, if you know what I mean. All right. That'll do it. Monday, December 15th is the date. Smash like, hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Continues to help us grow, as always, right here on the channel. If you made it wire to wire, you're the best, and I can't thank you enough. If you tuned in for any part in between, it means just as much, baby. I'm Josh Williver for the Brooklyn Boys Show, signing off saying have a great night, everybody. Like and subscribe to support the growth of this channel. And as always, I'll leave you with one final let's go Nets. See you in the next one, folks. Peace out.